We grew up on Disney princesses, but society let us forget that we were queens. Some of y'all won't like this video, and I don't even like having to talk about this because it shows that we've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, left holding the bag. The sexual liberation movement was more hindering than freeing. Let's discuss. The sexual liberation movement arguably began in the 1960s, and it was the second sexual movement in the United States, with the first being in the 1920s in the flapper era. I want you guys to understand just how taboo sex was. It was strange to do anything aside from missionary, and having sexual fantasies and expressing those to your spouse was highly frowned upon. There was no face down, ass up, handstands, sex toys, roses, dildos, tying your partner up, none of that. Sex went from something that was seen as being only used for reproducing and creating a nuclear family to now being seen as something that emphasized our autonomy and in many ways was commodified. As they say, sex sells. The movement was created to remove the guilt or judgment that comes along with freely meeting our sexual needs. There were a lot of key things that happened during this time. The invention of the birth control pill, which led to a decline in condom usage. Abortion reform. Sexual education in schools. A shift from being a virgin until marriage. Movies were now able to display sexual acts as long as it was rated. And there was a surge in the viewing of porn. And voila, there you have it. The birth of sex being pushed in the media. Now, I think we can all agree that some good things did come out of the sexual liberation movement, but there's a lot of bad as well. Higher STD rates, lower marriage rates, higher divorce rates, out of wedlock children, and higher abortion rates. But aside from those statistics, there were a lot of intangible downsides, and a lot of them were for women.
I think that the sexual revolution from the get-go had downsides for women, because when it comes down to it, men and women are different in some really important ways. And I think we have to find ways of negotiating that rather than denying it.
Ironically, a lot of the sexual liberation movement is tied into feminism. It's this empowering thing. We're breaking away from the patriarchy. Yay! But then we see freedom in being sexually involved with men. It still involves men. Women, we have screwed ourselves royally. We're giving men sex, which is what they wanted the entire time, at a lower price. And I want to be very clear that my viewpoints are not based on seeking approval from men. My concern is that we as women, we are collectively trying to move in ways that don't really benefit us, right? Because we often have more emotional ties when it comes to sex. In the name of liberation and sexual freedom, we're having these casual sexual interactions, and we're not really thinking about how it's going to impact us in the long run. One of the issues that I have with the sexual liberation movement and what it's become is that we have become so fixated on this idea that we have to be equal to men. If a man can go out and sleep with 50 people, I should be able to go out and sleep with 50 people, and I shouldn't be looked at any differently. And I get it. I've been there. I've had those frustrations as well. But I think that when we become fixated on that way of thinking, we are stripping ourselves of the power that we have. And our power is the fact that we are not men. How are we walking around saying that we're these powerful women and we can do this and that and we're so unique and we give life and we do all this different stuff, but day in and day out, you're trying to move in the same way that men are moving? That is not our superpower. Many of us are guilty of going on social media and talking about how dating is really hard because men only want one thing. But a lot of this ties into the fact that we have collectively removed the incentive of sex. In my opinion, what we should have done was withhold sex because we wanted to, not because we felt like we needed to be a virgin to get married, to have access to resources because we didn't have anything, but because we hold the keys to sex. We have the rights, the upper hand in being selective. That would have been the most player thing that women could have done. And that in itself would have been sexual liberation. You want sex? you follow my terms. But we seem to have left out the terms and conditions agreement. You know, it's kind of like becoming an adult. Everyone cautions you to value your innocence, but you're so caught up on wanting the freedom of being an adult. And then when we get to adulthood, which is very ghetto, we wish we'd embrace being a child, but you can't go back. You cannot go back. We have to learn to own our decisions and the consequences that come along with them. I am an advocate of abstinence for a reason. I have seen several examples of how sexual liberation and casual sex can be detrimental to women. I have been there and I know. There are so many women who will tell you that if they could go back in time, they would have remained a virgin until they were married because it wasn't worth it. I'm just saying that I think we would benefit a lot from being more selective about our sexual encounters. We live in a very hypersexualized society. I just think that there's a lot of unhealthy mixing of energies going on. And I also think it's really sad that it's become normalized to walk down the street and completely pass by someone who you've had sex with, and one, not remember the person, or two, just walk past them like you don't know them because things ended on poor terms or it was just a one-night stand situation. But I will say this, and I know some men are probably gonna be like, oh my God, you were doing so good on holding women accountable. I believe in duality on this channel. So I have a message for men and women. Women, you have the right to learn from your mistakes and adjust accordingly. I am often disgusted by some of the comments that I see where we're pushing this narrative that women, human beings, become indefinitely worthless based on their sexual past. We've all heard it before.
You let him hit on the first date. Why do I need to wait over a month?
Because I said so. This ideology is used to keep women in a self-destructive loop of not respecting themselves and establishing standards. You don't get to box me into a category of accepting subpar treatment just because you feel entitled to sex. I challenge the viewpoint that even as a woman who may have been promiscuous, you hold absolutely no value. The irony is that this narrative is pushed by men whose value is determined by their ability to sleep with you. In other words, you can be labeled a worthless hoe, but a man will gain value and status in society by being able to say that he slept with worthless hoes. So are you really worthless? With that in mind, I'm always keep it real with you, okay? The reality is that there are some men who are not going to want to deal with you if your past is a little bit too much. Your name is ringing too many bells in these streets. Own your actions. But do not adapt the mentality that you are unlovable and should continue engaging in surface level relationships because that's all you'll ever get. And for the men, I have one thing to say to you today. Please stop demonizing women who are authentically speaking out about their experiences and cautioning younger women so that they can do better than they did. I completely understand when it seems like it's grifting and the people are not being genuine. But I cannot count how many comments I've seen that say, oh, now she wants to turn over a new leaf because she's getting older or she's hitting the wall. Nobody wants her and now she's trying to save face. Listen. Here's the reality. If women had been publicly honest about casual sex a long time ago, we probably wouldn't be as deep in this mess as we are now. So please show women a little more grace when they are making a genuine effort to not only improve themselves, but to also mentor and guide other women. But that's all I got for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.